Anybody there?
Okay.
Anybody?
Well,
Yeah.
we're live. We're live. I can't see if anyone's here or not. If anyone's here, maybe they can send us a message in the chat so we can identify them. But if anyone is here, welcome. This is the very first Rebel Spirit Radio live stream. This is a an experiment. We'll see how well this goes. And we'll record this. So I know that there were several people who wanted to attend, but were unable to for various reasons. So they can watch this later. And Dr. Sharon Coggan joins me again. Sharon,
Hi, all.
hello. It's always
Everyone.
wonderful to see you. Um,
Likewise.
Here we have someone,
All
Tony
right.
Fazio.
That's my pal. Hi, Tony. Hi, Tony. I can't
Wonderful.
see you. How come
Yeah.
I can't see
I don't know. I think it's just the way the controls are
you?
on this. I can actually do this, I think, and you should be able. I don't know if you can see it on the screen now, where it says "Hello, this is Tony and Tammy," um,
Can
and
I hear?
yeah. So, well, they're here.
Can
They're
they
here.
hear me?
Uh,
Can they hear
Pardon?
me?
Yeah, they
Can
should be able to hear you.
Tony and Tammy,
Yeah.
my loyal followers,
Yes,
my
and
Sharonistas, Nick
yes,
the
and
Sharon from way back.
yeah, and are
Right, Nick?
is Tony and Tammy former students as well, or
He is, and Tammy's the mom.
all right, wonderful. And I
Tony was
see.
my dad.
Okay. And I see another person has joined us. My friend Angela Young. Um,
Okay.
Angie is familiar with you way back when, a long, long time ago. You did a hero's journey seminar over the weekend, and
Yeah.
I wasn't there, but I purchased the cassettes, and I know I lent them to Angie, and she really enjoyed them. So,
Well, thank
and
you.
she sent a dream, so we have a dream of
Excellent.
hers to look at. So. And Tony says that they can hear and see you,
Okay.
but they're just listening, so we can't see them. Um,
See you guys. So,
yeah. So what we're doing is you're going to interpret some dreams.
okay.
And if you want, we can start right away with some dreams. I have some that someone messaged me. And if anyone is watching, Tony, Tammy, Angie, if they have anything that they want to have interpreted, they can enter it into the chat. And I can actually pull that up on the screen and can read it. And that way you can then do the interpretations.
Okay.
So I thought I'll start with this one. I have a really interesting one for you that I'll save here.
You know that in the Freudian line, all dreams mean that you want to sleep with your parent of the
Right.
opposite gender. All right,
Right.
so that's good. All right, now we know what the dreams mean.
Yep. There you go. There you go. And also,
Yeah,
yeah, and death, a death wish too, right?
don't wish against the
Yeah.
parent of the same gender.
Oh, yeah.
You
There
know,
you go. There you
of
go.
course.
All
Now we
right.
know what dreams mean.
Yeah. All right. So here's a dream for you. And I thought that I would also identify when known the gender because I think that's helpful in the Jungian interpretation. So this one is it was twilight, driving with a female guide up the
Okay,
side. Oh,
is this
pardon?
a male's? Is
No,
this
this
your
is a
dream?
female. Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Female's
yeah,
dream.
yeah,
Okay.
female dream. So it was twilight, driving with a female guide up the side of a forested mountain. When we reached the top, it was flat with trees and a cabin. The cabin was unremarkable, but ghost children, and in parentheses it says apparitions, were everywhere.
Wow.
Hidden in the corners, standing in the yard, pale and longing for attention. I asked the guide what happened. She said, "We don't talk about it." She said, "I don't like coming up here. It reminds me of," and then something too much. I think it was left out here. She left for a reason, but I don't know what the reason was. I walked inside, thinking it would be less uncomfortable and safer. Upon entry, it smelled old. Flat worn carpet, 70s shag gold carpet, dark cheap paneling on the walls. The ghost children were also in the house. I could sense them. I pulled a curtain from over the closet door, and there was a frightened ghost child, a girl, standing against the wall. I closed the curtain and went to take a shower. I needed water. I'd be safe in the water. A little ghost girl came to try to get in with me. She was trying desperately to put her arms around me, to hug me, her fingers digging into my skin. I did my best to hold her back by her arms, but I was not succeeding. The fear was too much, and I woke up. Yeah. And we can
Clearly
refer back to this as
horrible.
well. And um,
So is the dreamer online with us here?
yes, yes, she is. Yeah.
Okay. So I can kind of confirm with her,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Okay. I
yeah.
can't hear her talk.
No, it's only
Uh,
chat, and I can be the mediator here. Yeah.
okay.
All right.
All right. Now, I have to preface this by saying I don't know. Okay. So I'm just saying, of course, everyone is fallible. I'm trained in Jungian thought. Jung has certain ideas. That doesn't mean it's exactly right,
Oh.
or that we are pronouncing what that dream means. Jung always said the dreamer is the ultimate arbiter.
Mm,
And if the dreamer says that doesn't fit at all, then, the dreamer's right.
mm-hmm,
Although if the dreamer's wanting to avoid, things
mm,
and, is in denial, then, the interpreter can still be right. But I think this dream is pretty clear.
mm.
Uh, one would have another alternative than what I'm thinking of, namely all the ghosts that she dreamed of a place that really is haunted with ghosts.
Mm,
Now, I don't dismiss anything like that by any means. I don't know. We don't know what's
mm.
what in the world. I've only been studying it for 50 years. It doesn't mean I know what's what. So I don't think she could have stumbled upon a pretaloka, is what the
Oh,
Hindus call it, preta, Preta,
mm-hmm,
which is a realm of hungry ghosts. That is, the Hindus say when we die, well, actually in Buddhism, there's 6 lokas or locations we can go to when we die. And one of them is the Pretaloka, which is terrible. You sure don't want to get stuck there. That's like the Overlook Hotel, in The Shining. It's a spot that kind of congregates unhappy dead spirits. They died by violence. They, are haunting spirits. Like we call them ghosts or haunting spirits. In India, they have a whole name for it, Preta.
mm.
Now, I don't think the dream means that.
Right.
I think the dream, and I could be wrong, is about her personal life.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we typically would have a male figure guiding her because that would be the animus or masculine side of the self. She's got a female figure guiding her. Can we ask her, is this female figure your guide in the dream? Is it someone you know? Is it someone older? Is it a mother? Is it a total stranger?
We'll wait to see if she can give a response. It just says female guide. I don't think it was her mother. Um, uh, uh,
Is it older?
um,
Is she answering?
not yet. Probably typing.
Pretty not a tune in for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, while we're waiting on the response, what about the setting of the dream that it's twilight?
Yeah, good. Oh, thanks for reminding me because
Yeah.
when we analyze dreams, we go back to the beginning and look at every detail on the
Hmm.
way. Twilight. Okay, but first I'm getting at this female guide. Are they in a car, did it say? Uh,
Yeah, driving, and she responded that the guide was no one that she knows.
okay,
She was a stranger and in her early 40s, just a
okay,
little bit younger than she is.
okay. And was she driving? Was this female figure driving the car?
Yeah, was the female driving or was the dreamer driving?
Okay, all right. So we have some lag time to wait for
Yeah,
the answer.
yeah, yeah.
In any case, and you'll tell me,
Well, she says
The
yes, so I think that means that the guide was driving. Yeah.
Okay, so the car in our dreams symbolizes this what we call the soul chariot.
Mm.
Okay, used to be your horse or your chariot, and the bond between the person and the horse, right? So now we don't have that; we have our car. So our car is our soul chariot. It's an extension of the self. It is the carrier of the self. So this is wherever your car is going or whatever's happening with your car in a dream symbolizes your what do I want to say? Your container,
Mm.
your mechanism by which to journey in life. All right. So she's on a journey. She has another female figure. This would be the higher self. If
Mm.
it's the same gender as the dreamer, we tend to say it's a version of her. It's the more evolved version. It's the higher self. It's the potential to reach a greater consciousness. She's driving, meaning she's in charge, going up the hill. Now, going up a hill, it's like I'm seeing a mountainous with like
Mm-hmm.
forested. All right, so going upward, I'm seeing a kind of steep climb. Now, as I talk, whoever it is, you can correct me. That is a journey to higher consciousness, according to Jung. That is, you're on your way to evolution, to soul evolution, to evolving into the what Jung calls the great self with a capital S, which would be whole and healthy. We note that these words are etymologically related: whole, health, healthy, holy, holistic, holography, etc. So for Jungians, what's healthy is what's whole. You get to wholeness by incorporating all the elements of the psyche, especially the opposites, like masculine, feminine in this case. So she's moving toward higher consciousness. She's on her way toward a magnificent evolution of the psyche of the self, toward greatness, toward realizing the great self, which Jung amazingly says the self archetype is the same thing as the God archetype.
Mm.
So he is a mystic in the end, which in our field, religious studies, is not an insult. In the field of psychology, he's not, always accepted, and they call him a mystic. They dismiss him as a mystic. We mean something rather specific by mystic and mysticism in our field. One thing we mean is that the deity is within, and it's experienced in the self and a journey toward higher self. So when Jung says the self is God, he doesn't mean you're personal. Your little Nick is God and Sharon. We don't mean that. We mean the evolution to the great self, which is he thinks identical with the deity. So if we got to absolute wholeness, to the nth degree, it would be what we call apotheosis in the Latin alchemical tradition, transformed into the divine. So your dreamer there, she's on her way. This is magnificent. She's got a major journey toward higher consciousness. But when we get to the top, she's got to deal with this before she can get to higher consciousness, to, you might call it self actualization or something like that, and total health. You can't be healthy till you go through all your stuff and, deal with it. So she sees now it flattens on top. And that's kind of interesting because it isn't like a mesa or a
Mm.
flat top. So she can't go any higher in her soul evolution until she deals with stuff on this plane. And what she sees, there's a cabin. Okay. It's nothing that remarkable. Oh, I'm sorry. You mentioned twilight. See, I don't want to
Right.
forget a detail.
Right. Yeah.
Twilight is in between dark and light. Twilight is the period of transformation. Well, she's in the twilight zone.
Mm.
Don't we know Sharon loves throwing jokes in too? But the twilight zone that's what it's about. It's in between conscious and unconscious. So Rod Serling, who runs the Twilight Zone, is our agent of transformation. He said, you're going to transform from conscious to unconscious. So she's right in between, and what our dreams are doing for us, among other things, is trying to render conscious, all of this material that we need to deal with and sort out and render it conscious. Okay, it does no good if you evolve, but you remain unconscious. Okay? Jung thought this is exactly what drug addiction is and alcoholism. The individual seeks to remain unconscious all the time because it's more comfortable. Yes, life was easiest when we were in the womb, right? It was mom's problem. But sorry, we get bored. Now we have to, evolve and render conscious all of our stuff. So she is her path to higher consciousness is stopped, kind of stopped cold until she deals with all this stuff. So now it's a cabin. And what's so remarkable is these ghost children everywhere. She doesn't say ghost, she says ghost children,
Right.
right?
Yes.
I'm just thinking, again, I could be wrong, and the dreamer should jump in and tell me, you know. I'm thinking this is the home environment, and all her ghost children are traumas, slights, unhappiness, things in her childhood she still needs to deal with and go through because it's ghosting her in that, you know, in a way
Mm.
that it's undermining her
Mm.
in her current life. You want to put it aside, not deal with stuff that happened in childhood.
Mm-hmm.
They make me feel very bad and low. Well, I don't want to deal with that. I'm not going to even think about it. Okay, but on your soul journey, you know, it presents itself to you unavoidably. Now you got to deal with it. So she's got to go in that. I'm thinking it's kind of a family environment,
Mm.
and she's got to deal with I was slighted here, I was made to feel bad here, I still have ghosts. My childhood self is still looming in my unconscious and undermining me, saying,
Mm.
You got to love me first. You got to embrace the shadow. That's what this is all about. The shadow is the dark side of the self, the animal side, but it also it becomes a dumping ground. So we dump into the shadow all we don't want to deal with in life.
Mm.
So her dream is, oh, you got to deal with this before you go any further, girlfriend. You know, so she's got to embrace all these ghost children, which are all her former self as a child who got hurt, who got wounded.
Mm.
She's got to deal with her wound, and maybe the wound is multiform, you
Mm.
know, because there are many children. And she feels, you can read to me now, she feels oppressive in the house or something. She feels she can hardly breathe in the house. I don't want to add to something she
Uh,
didn't say.
yeah.
Before she
Well, first, before I do that, she did confirm that I absolutely believe they were all traumas as a young girl. And I thought that inside the cabin, the dating of it, the 70s shag gold carpet and whatnot, would correspond to when she was a young girl. Um,
exactly.
let's see, it says, uh, so she sees them all over the place and she
Yeah.
asks the guide what happened.
Oh,
And
right.
the guide said, we don't talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We don't talk about it, meaning
Yeah.
we try to repress all memory of trauma and difficulty in life.
Right. And then the guide says, I don't like coming up here. It reminds me of too much.
There's too much involved here.
Yeah.
You know, I would almost suggest, I don't know, again, I'm prefacing it with I could be way wrong, but with a dream like this, I would not be surprised, I'll put it that way, to hear that there was childhood abuse.
Mm.
I don't know whether it was sexual abuse or verbal, emotional abuse in one way or another.
Mm.
So it's all over. And the guide's, I don't want to come up here. I don't like it here because it's too much.
Right.
It's overwhelming for her to try to, you know, dredge up and deal with childhood trauma. That's what this whole dream is about. And
Right.
then she feels there's something in between where and then she gets in the shower. What is there something?
Well, that comes. Here, I'll go back here. The guide leaves. Says
Oh,
she left for a reason, but I don't know what the reason was.
yeah, I'm
And
out of here. You're on your own to deal with this as an adult.
yeah, it says I walked inside, thinking it would be less uncomfortable and safer. Upon
In the,
entry, it smelled old.
okay, right.
The flat worn carpet, 70 shag gold carpet. And can't you just see that?
Yeah.
The dark cheap
It's,
paneling on the walls. I can see that too. And it says the ghost children were also in the house. I could sense them. I don't know if she
uh-huh,
could see them, but she can sense them.
yeah,
I pulled a curtain from over the closet door, and there was a frightened ghost child, a girl,
yeah.
standing against the wall. I closed the curtain and went to take a shower. I needed
Okay.
water.
Yeah. So, the child, she opens like a curtain. Okay, so she's stepping back into the 70s, back into her childhood home. And when it says the carpets were so worn, you know, well worn, we've been over and over and over these traumas. In other words, they were repeated, and she's very familiar with how it made her feel. And It's like wake up another day and who's going to hurt me today? She definitely has wounds in her soul from childhood unresolved trauma and tension. Excuse me. And then the dream starts to focus on this one little girl
Mm-hmm.
that's her own, model of her own little self. And the girl is so almost desperate. Someone's here to sing. Someone's here to help me, And she says, "I won't let you go. Don't let me go." Her childhood self, her child self, is screaming out for help, for love, for integration, for resolution of the childhood traumas. So then she feels the only good place, I need water. The only safe place here is in the shower. It's water. She's not drinking it, right? She gets in the shower, and
Oh,
the little ghost child gets in with her.
yeah, yeah.
So the shower. This is so terrific. I don't mean it's a sad dream and set of circumstances, but the dream is so perfect the way it
Mm,
lays it all out, because the shower, of course, is cleansing.
mm,
She needs resolution. She needs catharsis. She needs her soul needs cleansing
mm,
to clean up this history of trauma that has undermined her in her life and is still undermining her now.
yeah.
So the little girl that gets in is her little self who was traumatized
Mm,
and hugs her, like won't let her go. Come on, help me. She's like desperate for
right.
transformation and cleansing. And that's what the shower is. So she shouldn't be afraid of that little girl, grabbing and hugging her. Look at the model of what we mean by embrace.
Mm.
Embrace the shadow, embrace the trouble. So we would say to this person, oh, I'm sorry, my phone rang.
Okay.
I won't answer it. We would say to her, don't try to avoid. Stop avoiding, your stuff, your traumas. I'm sorry, I can't do anything about that. We'll ignore it. Because it's going to keep presenting itself to you until you deal with it, until you get cleansed. So I don't know if you want to talk to a therapist about these unresolved childhood traumas, or you could do something like a ritual. We have the solstice coming up. We have the end of one cycle and the beginning of a new cycle coming up. Take advantage of the time. Set up a whole ritual, like right on the solstice or whatever. And you can put little models of these ghost children around if you want on your altar or, wherever you're going to do your ritual. Light I don't know, maybe a white candle or it could be red for let's bleed and work through all this. In Jungian thought, we don't want to give Prozac and continue to avoid the problem so that you feel better and can function better in life. We don't want that. We want to go into it all together, not be afraid, and with a counselor or with help. Don't be afraid to face. I don't know, if it were me, I'd want to maybe in a ritual write out the things she can remember that harmed her in her family home, and the memories. This is what really bothered me, and then this was worse and this was worse. Go ahead and feel it while you do it, and then take the whole paper one at a time, burn them, burn it in the candle. And when you burn it, you're attending to, there it goes. I am seeking catharsis. I am seeking resolution and relief from these issues, and I'm going to be a new person. Construct your new person during your ritual, at the end of the ritual. And then you can light a green candle for renewal. Here's what I want to be in the future going forward. I don't want this stuff to um, um, undermine me anymore. And then your flat top on your journey up to higher consciousness was stymied because you have to deal with all this childhood stuff first.
Mhm.
Then you can continue on into the stars. And I would anticipate, having heard this, when we talk about it and get it out, we are naming it. We're putting it out in the world. Just words, just naming has a profound influence and power. So I would anticipate that she's going to manifest new dreams now,
Mm.
which some version of it, the little girl who used to be a ghost in this dream, now she's a little girl. She comes to you, the dreamer, she's going to hug. We can talk, something like, maybe the child will say something. Wow, that made a big difference to me. Or you're not hurting me anymore. Or thank you for rescuing me. Something like that.
Mm.
Something like that. I once heard a theorist, was it John Bradshaw? say this really interesting thing. If you're dealing with childhood stuff and like, who was it? You know, who had a terrific childhood with no problems? If you have unresolved stuff that's still bothering you as an adult, you can do a little exercise. Try this. As an adult who knows what you know and feels what you feel now, go imaginally, go home to your childhood home and knock on the door. Your whole family's in there. The mom, the dad, the brothers, the sisters, right? You say, I'm not here to see mom or dad. I'm here to see little, it would be Sharon. I'm here to see little Sharon. Because I know what Sharon went through and still hurts her. So I, adult Sharon, I'm going to go in, I'm going to hug and totally love and totally embrace little Sharon. I know what bothers her. So I'm going to say to her, look, honey, you're right to feel hurt by this. That was wrong. Well,
Mm.
just to validate what they did to you was wrong. They should be punished. You are fine. You didn't deserve this. It's so powerful to hear that from especially from a voice of authority, you
Mm.
know. And that alone, a little exercise is real powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, we did one dream, and of course,
Yeah.
she wants to sleep with her father and kill her mother.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. She did note that after the dream, she did find a therapist because of the intensity of the dream and how kind of overwhelmingly consuming it was. And also said that she will take your advice on the ritual. That's a great idea. And I think it's something that I know would really work for her and respond for her. Yeah.
Good.
So yeah.
Rituals can be very powerful.
Yeah. So many thanks. Many thanks for that.
Thank you. I'm really glad our first dream was something I could analyze. It was something
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
clear.
Well, the next one, unfortunately, on this one, the person isn't here with us,
Okay.
so we're gonna have to get. But just the, I don't know. This was, it's a big dream, I think.
Okay.
So we can do with it what we can. All right. So, and this is a long one. So I'll run through it, and then we'll probably have to go back to bits of it. And the dreamer's a male, around my age. Says, I dreamt of a mortal man who was jealous of the god's powers, uh, and then enacted a terrible ritual to make himself a god.
Hmm.
The ritual was partially successful, and the mortal became the god of string and binding. He
Hmm.
only had one power. He could extend string from his body and attach it to a human who was then under the god's control. The more string that bound the mortal to the new god, the deeper the control. There was no limit to the number of humans the new god could bind to at the same time, and that was the danger. The more mortals bound to the god of string and binding, the more powerful this new god became. Then one of the new god's followers attacked me. She, so female here, tried to extend string from her fingertips to bind me to her, thereby binding me to her god. The string was white and incorporeal enough that it did not inhibit my movements in any way, but corporal enough that I could cut it with my knife. Cutting the string caused the network to collapse, freeing the woman and several other people further up the network of bindings.
Hmm.
Then a being materialized in front of me. He was a glittery black with white spots and an aura that both illuminated and increased the darkness around us. He was the god of night and darkness, and he wanted my help. This new god posed a great danger to the cosmic order, and they needed a physical being to remove the threat. I agreed to help and was immediately granted the power of the lion god. In the meantime, the god of string and binding had been consolidating power. I'd been the only mortal to resist his attack, so now he was strong enough to attack me directly. I repeatedly cut the assaulting strings with my god claws until finally I was close enough to strike. I pierced the skin in his side and withdrew a small black box. All strings ended in the box. I
Wow.
threw it to the floor and screamed with all my might. My scream was a roar, and the box burst into flame. Yeah, I know. I read that. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a tough one, but I've got to share this one.
I wish the dreamer were available so we could ask him.
Oh, I
It's a
know.
man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
Um,
male. Yeah.
all I can see in this, I mean, I keep one thing we do as Jungian analysts is that we use our intuition,
Yeah.
and the intuition can be wrong. In other words, Freud has a formula. This is the id. This is the, you
Mhm.
want to sleep with your father. Okay. But Jung doesn't. It's more wide open. He has, rules of thumb or things to look for. But in the end, he, as an analyst, with a patient in the consulting room, is using his intuition.
Mm.
And he says best doctors, whether they're medical doctors or psychiatric, whatever, are the intuitive ones. Okay, rather than just following a formula that's right for every person who has this ailment. So I keep being hit intuitively. This sounds to me, I want to ask the dreamer, was he a Trumper?
No, he was most
Was
definitely not a Trumper.
right. So is he horrified by Trumpism?
Um, I I don't know if I would say horrified, but I know he's bothered by it.
All right.
Yeah.
This is what is screaming to me from this dream.
Mm.
So, first of all, he's a mortal who wants to be a god. Now, you correct me, go back to
Mm.
the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is, hubris. This is
Mm.
arrogance on the part of humanity. We've seen it in 1,000 myths. Humans try to climb all the way to the top and become gods. That's why God in the Bible confounded their languages because the Tower of Babel, they tried to climb to the top. They're always trying to become like gods. Adam and Eve, they ate from the tree and they're going to become like gods. This is all through Greek myth, too. The hero gets knocked down for his hubris, for trying to act like gods. So in this dream, it's plugging into the archetype that humans have this drive to become greater,
Mm.
and maybe there's an arrogance involved. I don't mean on the part of the dreamer. I think this is a collective dream
Mm.
because there's others involved, and I think he's dreaming of the current political situation. Now, I could be way off. I could be way wrong on this.
Mm.
So we want the dreamer to confirm.
Yeah.
So it's a god of strings and binding.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And immediately I thought of Spider-Man.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm not into those films, but I know he can,
Right.
out of, from his fingertips or something,
Yeah.
and he can, he's godlike. He's a hero who has, superpowers.
Mm.
So the god of binding and strings, like we're tied now, we're tied together.
Mm.
Now, what happens in the beginning? He wants to be the god, and then he runs into the god of binding, or he,
Yeah, it says, and it doesn't say that this is him, but
uh,
I would assume that it is. He says he dreamt a mortal man who was jealous of the god's powers, enacted a terrible ritual to make himself a god. The
uh-huh,
ritual was partially successful, and
yeah,
the mortal became the god of string and binding. He only had one power. He could extend string from his body and attach it to a human who was then under the god's control.
control.
Yeah.
All I can hear is Trump. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I could be way off.
Yeah.
Trump or Putin or fill in the blank, any kind of individual full of hubris who thinks he can play God,
Mm.
who desires to be like God. I'm hearing Donald Trump because he wants to be like God or thinks he already is or whatever.
Mm.
Right? And now he has a power. He gets himself into a position where he usurps
Mm.
the position of the God. He sets himself up as like a God. And I'm in religious studies. I just went to a whole conference of religion scholars from all over the world, AAAR. And a few years ago, what was it, 2018? There was a whole group and a whole panel on Trump and the religious elements in the Trump phenomena.
Mm.
And I thought, the audience was all horrified, but I was horrified to find out the audience were a lot of them were Trumpers, and they believed Trump was Messiah or some damn thing. we saw visuals of Trump. The public didn't see this, but we saw it, surrounded by evangelicals, in a circle who are all praying and praying, touching him and laying this, and and he's just standing there going, like, I'm it, I'm it. He must have been in the ultimate moment of his life when others are around him worshiping him
Mm,
as if he were the Messiah. And I was stunned to find after the meeting that people believe that. Oh my God. And
yeah.
how do you get through them? So here, the God, now, the person who would usurp the position of the deity, has the power to bind people and tie them to him. Well,
Mm,
isn't that kind of like the followers now, who are kind of in a community? They're, a very vociferous, very intense, movement, that's not about social problems or this and this and this. It's about Trump. It's about him. It's
mm,
about his greatness. And then he's going to fill in why he's great, because he wants a wall, because he wants to get rid of Muslims, because he wants to, his program is all about racism. I'm sorry. Underneath everything he says is about get rid of these, get rid of those, get rid of them, get rid of, America first means white Americans only.
mm.
So people who flock to him are also racist. I'm just saying that. That's my, you could all get mad at me for being non-Trumper. Okay, I think it's dangerous. And there was language in the dream. How dangerous the dreamer thought this man was, or who's trying to play God, and that reminded me of Trump again. And he's got them bound. He's got them tied into him now,
Mm.
and they are like committed to him. Now there's something else that happened in the end. He gets to the main god and cuts him. He tries to
Yeah.
cut off the string.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say there was a comment. Someone just commented. My dear friend Stephanie commented Elon Musk. Uh,
Uh-huh. There's
same thing
another
at play, I think. Um,
concept. He's
yeah,
not dangerous.
right. So uh,
Like,
skipping a big chunk in the center here. Well, here I'll just do this. Um, so one of the new god's followers attacked me. She tried to extend string from her fingertips to bind me to her, thereby binding me to her god. The string was white and incorporeal enough that it did not inhibit my movements in any way, but corporeal enough that I could cut it with my knife. Cutting the string caused the network to collapse, freeing the woman and several other people further up the network of bindings.
yeah, because we're starting to see the beginning of the end of the Trump phenomenon. I mean, I'm hoping,
Yeah.
but people have already started severing their ties to this man. Look at how that fits the dream. And then she attacked him and tried to tie him to her.
Mm-hmm.
So the other followers, I mean, how much would you like to be a non-Trumper in the middle of that January 6th crowd? They're trying to grab, okay, and if it isn't Trump, it's like the Trumpers are more Trumpy than Trump, or something like that. And they're looking for a new champion now. And they're starting to sever ties. And the dreamer said, this is dangerous. We got to cut this off at the source, meaning Trumpism, or authoritarianism, if you don't want to go with Trump, Putin, and Musk, any of them. We've got to stop. We got to rise up and stop this. This is so dangerous for all. And we're all tied in, because Trump is president. He's going to bring us all down. So what's so interesting though, he severs the string, and then a box comes out from the side. This is all
That's
like
that
Christ.
yeah, that's a little bit later. So let me continue here. I know there was a lot here to remember on this one. It says a being materialized in front of me. He was glittery black with white spots and an aura that both illuminated and increased the darkness around us.
Isn't that
Uh,
funny?
yeah.
And
Um,
God, DeSantis,
well, I was thinking Darth Vader.
or a new God, a
Yeah,
new crazy who's going to take
yeah,
on the mantle of this movement.
right,
And he
right.
appeared black, glittery, meaning uh, charismatic as hell. I mean, Trump is charismatic as hell. I
Mm,
don't think DeSantis is, but Trump is dripping with charisma. That's part of what drew people to him.
Mm.
So shimmery, glimmering with charisma, black with white spots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is quite interesting because that's an alchemical stage right there.
Mm.
We are in the blackness. We are in the what's the word? The devolution
Mm.
that Trump inaugurated and has championed. And all his people who are tied to him with strings have followed him right downhill. So interesting when he first announced in 2015, and he's on that escalator going down.
Right. Right.
All Jungians, I mean, I don't know about all, but lots of Jungians thought, aha, here we go. Here's the beginning of a descent into the shadow. He's descending into the unconscious, and the unconscious for him and his followers is severely ill, severely disturbed. And it's gonna, that moment, his life was okay, he wanted more attention, okay. But now, if he hadn't run for president, he wouldn't be in all this trouble now. If he decided to run for president, here he goes down into hell. It's gonna lead straight down into his complete dissolution,
Mm.
destruction. I, I don't know. I'm just, that's what it seems to me and to other Jungians. Okay, so um, Black, he led us all into darkness,
Mm.
into severe trouble and, riots and violence and the disease shadow. He opened up the severely diseased shadow of the United States. And it's all inflated and out of proportion and distorted. Now it's got white polka dots, though. It's whitening.
Mm.
So in alchemy, the black phase, nigredo, it's called, is depression, inertia, and then gradually it starts to whiten, whiten, whiten. So you'll get little spots of white, and then you'll get little polka dots of white. And then as time goes on, it's mostly white, and then it'll be all white. So nigredo moves into albedo. Nigredo is depression, the darkness, the shadow, disease shadow that has gripped us or gripped the Trumpers. And they're starting to whiten, though. This is starting to be over.
Mm.
I've predicted for a long time this is going to, wind its way up. We're seeing the, crazy spin offs of this, what I call reactionary phase, that I think was brought in by, inaugurated in 1980 with Ronald Reagan, who championed this conservative revolution.
Mm.
Now it's gone 40 years, and we're seeing the maudlin, crazy spin offs of it because it's ending.
Mm.
It's not going to carry the future. Now I could be way wrong, and I'll be sorry. But and the white spots, it's showing this is starting to ease off,
Mm.
and these strings are starting to be cut. This is
Mm.
great. And anything we non-Trumpers can see that moves that crowd away from Trump is good news to us. And then there's something the box. There was something in the box.
Yeah.
He
Well,
pulled
yeah. Yeah. That comes next. So let me kind of finish this because I think this applies to what you were just saying with the dream because the uh, figure appears
the
the
new.
glowing black figure with white spots and it says he was the god of night and darkness and he wanted my help. This new god posed a great danger to the cosmic order, and they needed a physical being to remove the threat. I agreed to help and was immediately granted the power of the lion god.
Oh yeah. Oh God, that's so great. It's almost like Elon Musk coming in now to say, "Okay, I'll take over and I'll let all you
Mm.
crazies, all you racists have a free reign and Twitter yourself into into oblivion as much as you want." It's almost like the changing of the guard, but it's still darkening. It's still a dangerous. And then they ask for the dreamers' help.
Mm-hmm.
Help us get rid of all this. We all have to help.
Mm.
We did help earlier in the month when we voted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's how we can help. But the dreamer is being called upon. We got to stop this craziness. And then the dreamer is like anointed. That's fantastic. It's an oracular dream in that
Mm.
sense.
Yeah.
As the lion god. Now, the lion, of course, major symbol. The great self. This is all through alchemy. This is an alchemical dream also. The lion stands for the great self. Then there's a green lion and a red lion and a gold lion.
Mm.
Uh, he is being anointed with power in this dream to help stop the crazy, arrogant god who is a person who has assumed godhood and has bounded and tied everyone to himself. The dreamer's given a task. Get rid of this guy. You can't do it unless you're on his level. You got to be a god too.
Hmm.
But he was given the deity, the lion deity, king of the jungle. It's the king. It's the symbol of the great self in
Hmm.
alchemy. The golden lion has achieved the great self, and I talked about the great self before.
Right.
Apotheosis. So he's being elevated in the dream to divine status, so that he can do battle with the similar god. So interesting. Batman, for example, is fighting crime in Gotham City, but he has to dress in black. He has to enter the field of the shadow to do battle with the shadow. Luke Skywalker, I think, is so interesting. In episode 4, which is our first movie, 1977, he's all in white. And then if you notice at the very end, he's differentiated. He's yellow and brown.
Hmm.
And then in the second movie, he's gray. That's alchemical traveling. And then in the third movie, he's in all black because he has to go meet Darth Vader on Darth Vader's territory. So you have to enter into the realm of the shadow. See, so he's being made in the dream a deity who has the power to do battle with this crazy, usurper. And then what happened? Then he's the lion, and then something happens, right? He
Yeah,
he
yeah.
cut.
This is the last part. It says, in the meantime, the god of string and binding had been consolidating power.
Yeah.
I'd been the only mortal to resist his attack, so now he was strong enough to attack me directly. I repeatedly cut the assaulting strings with my god claws until finally I was close enough to strike. I pierced the skin in his side and withdrew a small black box. All strings ended in the box.
Oh,
I
that's
th-
right.
I threw it to the floor and screamed with all my might. My scream was a roar and the box burst into flame.
Oh, that's so great because we end up in a good situation at the end of the dream.
Mm.
Uh, First, he's cutting with his divine claws.
Mm-hmm.
All these bonding, all these ties to Trump. And we got to get to the people who worship him and cut it away. He's got to be exposed as a charlatan in their eyes. For the rest of us, it's obvious from the beginning. Maybe the lawsuits will all catch up with him. Now, it'll be so interesting to see. Will we see riots on the part of Trumpers when he's, indicted and arrested? We might. I'm ready for that. But I'm also expecting it won't be as intense
Mm.
as January 6th. I think it'll be muted, and eventually they're going to see with one lawsuit after another, this guy isn't what we thought. This isn't our Messiah. But we desperately need one.
Mm.
So they'll shift to someone else, but it won't be the kind of movement and the kind of power. I've said for a long time now, we still have Trumpers, we still have this crazy right wing, but the force is not with them.
Mm.
And the force was with them. They have the force. The
Mm.
force is with us now.
Mm.
You know, I'm meaningfully
Yep.
speaking about mythic themes from movies, but you all know what I'm talking about. We're talking about the dream world anyway. So he manages to sever people away from this charlatan. And finally, he gets close enough to attack him directly. And, I think it's curious that cut in the side reminds me of the Christ figure
Yep.
also on the cross, cut in the side, and then flows forth living waters from his body, right? And the Holy Grail, that's what it is. They come up to collect it right there. Okay. So that reminds me of that, but this is a demonic figure. Cut the side open, and there's a box. And in the box, black box, the negative, the shadow, the dark
Mm.
side, is the origin or the point of, the beginning and ending, the alpha and the omega of all this tying and bonding. All the ties start here and end here. So he grabs the source of the power that Trump is holding over people and throws it down like with triumph. And I don't think he smashes it, but does he? He with a great yelp or something,
Yeah.
and then it goes into flame.
Yeah. Yeah. He screams with it with all of his might, and then it bursts
Yeah,
into flames. Yeah.
yeah, which is what all of us anti-Trumpers want to do, right?
Yeah.
Screaming, get out of our. Did you hear today? Trump wants to suspend. I think he used the
Yeah.
word terminate the Constitution.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
wants to terminate the Constitution and proclaim himself God again. That is president.
right,
And
right.
he's looking more and more like a crazy, maudlin, sick individual. He doesn't have the power he had even a few years ago.
No.
And it's starting to look more and more and more like a joke. So we throw it down. Here is the oppressor. And, with a mighty shout that comes from our soul,
Mm,
and it bursts into flame. Everything I'm saying about Trump, we could redo this whole dream and apply it to Putin. And I think we've got the very same. Putin is extremely dangerous. Look what he's doing.
mm,
At least Trump didn't start attacking other countries. But the flames now, that's the final thing, bursting into flames. So flames are curative, purifying. It's so interesting. Jungians always work with words. The word fire related to pyre, the
mm,
funeral pyre, that's related to the word pure, purification.
mm,
So purify ourselves in the fire. You burn away the dross, you burn away the negative elements. That's the way to overcome the shadow. And Darth Vader at the end, the end of episode 6, is burned on the funeral pyre. It's a wonderful scene, and it's almost like Anakin Skywalker is freed up because we burned away the dross, we burned away the savage of
mm.
Darth Vader. How's that for dream analysis?
Good. Well, one of the things I didn't tell you,
Oh,
I'd have to double check, but I know that this dream, my friend who had this dream, he's been recording his dreams on a website.
ah,
And this is, I forget, well over 1,000
wow.
dreams now. And this is a recent one that he had right around the time of the election. So,
Yes.
yeah,
See, now I was using my intuition, and it just kept screaming at me. That's Trump. Here's Trump.
yeah.
Let's talk about Trump. But any authoritarian leader. So I'm glad now the dreamer would have to check in and say, Sharon, you're way off. This was a dream showing I want to sleep with my mother and kill my.
Yeah. Well, we'll share this since this will get posted, and I'll let him know to go look at it and get feedback and send it to you.
Oh,
Uh,
great, great. Thank you.
yeah. And so I don't know how many people are with us. I know a few are. I just wanted to remind everyone that if they have a dream that they would like interpreted, that they can enter it into the chat box, and I can share it with Sharon, and you can get an interpretation.
Tammy and
So,
Tony still with us?
yeah. I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, okay.
I can only see people as they're chatting.
Oh,
I'm kind of
okay.
afraid to
Don't worry.
look at anything else because
Sure.
um,
Mess it
I
up.
don't know what it'll do. Uh,
Yeah.
so,
Okay.
yeah, but
Well,
that's a good
that's
thing. I have
yeah.
to figure out if I can find a nice way to see if how many people are with us.
Uh-huh.
Because that would be good to know. That would be good to know.
Oh, this is working. Your whole setup here is working so far.
Yeah. And Tony says he is still here.
Oh, holy Tony. And I have analyzed his dreams. So,
Okay, very good, very good. All right, so I've got. How about we do this? I've got a couple others, but how about one of my dreams?
sure.
Okay, so and
You
this
know you
way,
tell
hmm?
your father and sleep with your mother. Okay.
Yeah,
Or is it the other way? Anyway,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's
No,
a,
neither way, neither way.
and then we'll hit
Okay.
someone who really does.
Well, and
Want
this is yeah. I decided I'd share this one because well, you'll know. I think so. Anyway, um, I'm hiking in a forest trail. There's an old man with me. I think it might be there's an online astrologer, Roland Oblis. He's a older gentleman. We pass a cabin. I want to stay for the night, but we go deeper into the woods. We end up at what looks like, and I wrote an apartment complex of sorts, but I think it looks more like a military
hmm.
row of houses or buildings. Um, we asked someone, um, there are other people there, if we can just take a room. We go in, and it's the last room in the building physically. There's a bed and 2 cots. I was going to take one of the cots, but the old man said he'd prefer a cot over the bed. He then closes the windows, but I want them open. Then I'm in a large lodge like setting. I think maybe I had been talking to a woman. I'm not sure. Joseph Campbell is sitting at a bar. I think he overheard me talking to the woman. I think I may have been complaining about my life, which I never complain about my life. Um,
Nothing.
yeah. Campbell asked me if I would like a one on one session with him. I say yes. He tells me I need to inform my dean. I told him about going to England in my bike track and how I took Hero with a Thousand Faces with me. That's actually a little bit of my history. Um, I said my mantra at the time was have faith and the rest will follow. I don't think he liked that. I think he said that was a mantra for an older man. The sense I got was that the one on one session was going to be difficult but productive. Campbell seemed rather stern.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, clearly you want to kill your mother and sleep with your father.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, other than that, okay, start again. You are walking with an older man,
Right.
walking over the
And
same gym
yeah.
in the forest.
Mm-hmm.
So you are walking into the unconscious. Forest is a symbol of the unconscious. You are walking, you're the dreamer, the ego self. You have the wise old man or spirit guide or the Obi-Wan Kenobi in this case has found you. You know, you are with your spirit guide, your wise old man, part of yourself, and he's kind of guiding you. You go through the forest, you get to a cabin, you say you'd like to spend the night there. He says, no, we got to keep going. So you're journeying into the unconscious with a wise guide, and you say, that's enough. I'd like to rest now. He said, we're not done yet. There's stuff ahead you got to deal with. So you keep going deeper into the unconscious. Then you see a military kind of facility.
Mm.
This has to do with rules, regulations. Deep in your unconscious, you find a place where you will feel constricted
Mm.
and heavy, heavy expectations upon you. You're not going to be free there. Um, you have to enter in. You get to the last room in the complex, kind of like on the edge, sort
Mm-hmm.
of.
Mm-hmm.
I'm moving through all this discipline stuff. All right, all right. I'll do what I have to do to be disciplined, to carry out my job. You're not completely free in that you have to, hold down this job that has its issues. See, I've talked to Nick, so I know about the issues. So, and it feels like a constricted, whether this is the job or your life or your past, one way or another, you feel there's a force in your life which is a very paternalistic, authoritarian kind of a demand, the
Mm.
high expectations
All right.
that you can't get around. You've got to, yes, sir, no, sir, right? And you feel constricted. You don't like it there. You get on the edge. Okay, I'll play this game, but I'm not really in this game. I'm just doing this to, do what I have to do in society, but I'm on my way out. I'm gonna do something else. Get into podcasts and fun things like that. And then read me the what happens then.
Oh,
You're at the
okay. So there are other people there, um, and ask if we can take a room. We go in, and this is where it's the last room in the building physically. There's a bed and 2 cots.
right.
I was going to take one of the cots, but the old man said he'd prefer a cot over the bed. He then closes the windows, but I want them open.
Yeah. Okay. So the two cots here. The cot, the cot is sort of more temporary than a bed. Sort
Mm-hmm.
of, it's more flimsy or something. Not as comfortable. And he says he'd prefer a cot to the bed.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's the wise old man, and he's like saying, "I prefer to be a disciplined little good soldier. Do what I'm told." And you say, I want some comfort in life.
Mm.
This isn't comfortable. And then you want let's say you want the windows closed and he
No,
wants
I
them
want
open.
them open. He wants them closed.
You want them open. The open windows are about, freeing
Mm.
yourself. You want to be freed up from this situation. Let the light come in. Let the new energies come in. He wants them closed. Your authority figure says, you got to buckle up, dude. You got to, meet your obligations in life and no nonsense sort of a thing. You felt a strong, what did you say at the end? I felt a restrictive military kind of,
Well, it was like barracks, in a sense. Stern. Campbell seems stern. Yeah,
sure, the whole place seems stern.
yeah.
Like, you're not getting out. You're not freeing up yourself and your soul from all this.
Mm.
You got to, with a stern countenance, you've got to do your duty in life. You're not done with this job and this, working through your stuff. You still have obligations and expectations that are onerous
Mm.
on your soul that you're not freed up from yet.
Mm.
But you're on your way. You're on your way out.
Hopefully. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I can also put the context of when I see Joseph Campbell. That was
Oh,
an
yeah,
influence that led me into religious studies.
right.
And yeah,
He You say, I want to do what he does. This is fantastic. And you meet him at a bar, which
it's
reminded
it's in a lodge.
me,
And I think he's sitting at like at a bar in the lodge. Yeah.
yeah, which made me think of a joke, Joseph Campbell and a rabbi and a priest go into a bar. But no, I don't have a joke. That comes before the military building, right?
No, this is afterwards.
After. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're thinking your avenue of escape from your heavy responsibilities and your stern, expectations in life is a Joseph Campbell way out.
Mm.
Meaning follow the myth, and you try to tell him, I took Hero's Journey with me on my trip through Ireland or England, was it?
Yeah.
Scotland, uh,
Yeah.
and
That was yeah, Italy, France, and England. Yeah.
okay, okay. I took you with me on my journey, and it
Mm.
was the hero's journey you carried
Mm.
with you. So you're saying Joseph Campbell is a beacon to you, a symbol of this in the dream that you can heroically overcome this. You are on the hero's journey. You're on your hero's path,
Yeah.
and the hero doesn't get through without meeting the expectations of the journey.
Yeah.
Be true. If you ran away, if the dream had shown you escaped from the law from the military plane, ran into the woods, and then you sat there feeling sad, life will come back and bite you. The dream shows you are willing, you are kind of stuck here. You're going to follow through with your heroic journey into liberation
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah. What I found interesting about it is that when I did that bike trek, I had been in journalism and I quit my
Oh,
job. I sold everything I owned and I left the country. And I did
wow.
have this mantra as I was riding my bike, that I kept saying all over and over and over, have faith and the rest will follow.
And he
Because
didn't,
it was for me that sort of leap of faith. And
yeah.
I found it interesting that Campbell didn't like that, but he says in here, he's like, that's a mantra for an older person. So it seems like maybe it's saying that it's the mantra I need to readopt now, perhaps.
I don't think so, but I could
No?
be wrong.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know about older person and older time.
Hmm.
Um, Jung talks about faith, and I have it in my book. I have
Yeah.
quotes. Jung says faith is all that's left after you wring the whole tradition out of all experience.
Hmm.
Religion, spirituality should be about direct experience of the numinous, so
Right.
that you're enveloped in the numinous, you're in the experience of awe, and it's experiential. And this is going to transform your life. This is going to give meaning to your life, etc. Real spirituality.
Hmm.
But religion, organized religion has squeezed out all the numinous, and all we're left with is here is a set of principles, and you have to believe them. And if you don't believe them, God will torture you after you die for all eternity. It's like
Yeah.
you have to believe this. You have to believe this. And it literally, Jesus literally rose from the
Hmm.
dead. Mary was literally a virgin. I do this thing.
Yeah.
Be, did you know Jesus had brothers and sisters? before, during, and after the birth. She remained an intact virgin. Now you have to believe that.
Yeah.
This is not experiential. This is not about awe. This is not even spiritual. This is an adherence to specific statements that a big organization has put forward. And that's what religion has become, has devolved into. Jung doesn't like this word faith. Faith, you have to have faith. You have, meaning you just have to believe it. Just don't question it and believe it. You believe it in spite of no evidence to the contrary. So Jung does this whole thing. Doubt is sacred. You should have doubt. Doubt is the thinking person's friend. Don't just swallow don't just believe it because you were told to believe it. Faith is all that's left once you wring out of the tradition all of the newness.
Yeah.
So Joseph Campbell, who is Jungian, is saying to you, it isn't about faith. And I wanted to say faith in what?
Yeah.
Now you might have faith that my life will turn out okay. Okay, that's different from faith in Jesus Christ, or
And
faith in
that's what it
really,
meant. That's the way I understood it at the time.
yeah,
Because I'm not part of any religion. If anything, I'll say I'm a Buddhist, but not a very good Buddhist. But at the time, it was to take a leap of faith,
yeah, and I
and
understand.
that everything would turn out. And so when I had that mantra, that's what I was saying is like, have faith and the rest will
Yeah,
follow. Yeah.
and it did work for you, and it was effective. I think Jung and Campbell are saying rather than faith, put in place, your plan.
Mm,
Rather than just faith and believe it. Um, I'm going to work out a plan as I'm riding my bike.
mm,
I'm going to have faith and believe that it'll work out for me, right? But now, what are my steps? First, I take this step, and then what's my end goal? Where do I want to end up? Like Joseph Campbell, doing what he does. So I'm going to take each step or each, turn of the
yeah.
bike rather than faith. I don't know. Faith is a word, thrown around in religion. Christians call all religions faiths,
Right.
which I don't think is appropriate because other religions don't expect you to believe all kinds of
Mm,
things.
right. 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 Yeah.
I don't
Very
know
good.
about yep,
Yeah. Yeah.
got
Thank
your
you.
dream analyzed.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Well, I found it interesting because I have a tendency to have recurring places, and I've
Aha, yep.
started having dreams of that lodge. I keep
Ah,
having dreams of the lodge again. Um, so yeah.
that's your, heavy expectations with sternness.
Mm, mm,
That's a
interesting.
force of life. Yeah. You
Yeah.
want to open windows and be free.
Yeah, I do. I do. Um, so I want to invite anyone also, just to remind them again, if they have a dream that they would like interpreted, please share it with us. I have a couple more that are ready and waiting. This is also from a man. And I don't know, maybe this is also a collective dream. I dreamt of watching two Earth like worlds collide. The
Whoa.
the action seemed to be in slow motion, but in reality, the planets were just approaching each other very slowly. So slowly that the collision barely broke the planet's crusts. The ecosystems and atmospheres of both planets survived intact. I
Hmm.
began to wonder what the weather would be like on this new combined planet. The
Hmm.
point of connection would likely be in shadow most of the year, so snow and ice would accumulate there, creating a third pole, with north and south poles still existing dependent on the angle of rotation.
Interesting. It's a cosmic dream for sure.
Yeah.
And is this a male?
Mm-hmm.
This individual is. I'm not sure about this. It's an apocalyptic dream in a sense.
Mm.
Individual might be feeling deeply like the world's going to hell in a handbasket. No one can do anything about it. We're on a collision course. We're on a collision course with a whole other world.
Mm.
I don't know. I'm sort of back to the political arena
Yeah.
because disruptive, you know. And here comes another planet,
Mm.
planet Trump, Trump world. Uh, I'm not insisting on that in this dream, and it comes, but it's a very slow motion kind of intersection,
Hmm.
and it doesn't really damage a whole lot, but it changes the crust, just into the crust, or barely touches the crust, but it's in the shadows now. We're stuck in the shadows because Trump has led us there, and it's
Hmm.
always going to be cold and snow
Hmm.
there. It's not warm. It's not life-giving. It's energetically, it's a difficult, cold realm we're going to have to deal with now. And then it's a third pole. It's almost like Trump world has disrupted our whole planet, and not just him. We would, how many times have you heard this? That Trump didn't cause all this, any of this. He's the result or something. He's a byproduct. The world created Trump and Trumpism, and Bolsonaro in Brazil and Putin in Russia. We are at a time of the evolution of the world order where authoritarianism is, was on the, I think it was on the ascendancy, and it has hit its peak. I think I could be way wrong, and it's just the beginning of the starting to, um, you know, we're moving out of its sphere. But
Hmm.
if we have an authoritarian world and worldview, it's gonna, slowly, so it doesn't appear to be all of a sudden. Hitler rose slowly. Hitler was elected, as you know, in 1932, right? So it doesn't appear to be that intense until, a decade later and everyone's being killed. So it's like, it's a slow moving eruption or interruption in our complacent day to day life in our world. And it creates a cold, cold, snowy, icy place that isn't conducive to life energies. And it's in the shadows, and we're kind of stuck with it, and it makes a third pole. It's almost like we have to deal now with Republicans and Democrats, but we have a third, what's that called? A third rail, or, a
Oh,
third pole
yeah.
is Trumpism. And I'm predicting, and we've already heard um, Liz Cheney promise that if Trump tries to run for president again, she will do it. She will run.
Hmm.
And we might see a third part. We might see the Republicans break into two factions, and Liz Cheney would nicely champion. They would be happy with her,
Hmm.
the traditional Republicans, and the Trumper crazy faction will go into its own realm, and they won't win. Then they'll split the vote, which Liz Cheney knows. She's doing it purposely
Hmm.
to prevent him from ever getting to be president. She'd be okay with a Democrat being president if she splits the vote. I don't know. I'm just thinking that way in terms of a third pole, and a whole planet, inter interconnecting with ours. I don't know. I could be way off with a political kind of a,
Yeah.
you
No,
know,
that it makes sense. And, you know, two things. One, just kind of immediate, is I don't remember where I saw it, but it was an article today, especially after Trump made his comments last
yeah,
night about,
yeah,
let's just chuck the Constitution. But the article was that Trump may be setting the stage for something that we saw happen like with Theodore Roosevelt, where he split the ticket.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and
Talking
so
about
that's exactly what you were saying. The
pole.
the other thing I wanted to kind of comment on is that this idea that dreams can be more than just about yourself, that we can have these dreams about the world and what's going on and what may happen. I know I've got a couple of really good friends that have apocalypse dreams
Yeah,
quite a bit. Um, and
yeah.
Jung had dreams as well, didn't he? Kind of foretelling the
I mean,
horrors of World War II.
and one,
And one
yeah.
too, yeah.
In 1913, so if you study all this, in 1913, nobody knew that war was looming on the horizon. It all had to do with the powers of Europe building up their arms, until, well, what do we do with it? Until it just took a trigger to, set it off. So in 1913, he has this amazing dream. He sees Europe in the dream, and all the magnificent buildings and everything. And he sees this colossal wave, like a tidal wave, from Germany, from the North Sea, I guess. That's the English Channel, up there. I'm sorry, I do better than this one, on geography. Anyway, he sees a huge tidal wave that hits all of Europe, and it flows down across Europe, and it smashes all the buildings. It smashes all civilization, and it flows out into the Mediterranean as this yellow, corrupt, sick decay, and it flows. And all the great buildings, magnificent cathedrals, just are all broken and flow into the Mediterranean. And Jung, sees Switzerland with the mountains. The mountains just grow above the whole fray, and the wave goes in both directions around Switzerland, and Switzerland is protected and survives.
Mm.
And they stayed out of both wars. It was an amazing dream, and that was an oracular dream, a prescient dream. Because a year later, figuratively, that's what happened. So yeah, we got to pay attention to our dreams. It does affect the world. Yeah.
Mm. Do you have any suggestions for people if in trying to interpret their dreams with symbols? If there's an image that
Yeah.
appears, like we had the lion, right, in the one dream. What would you recommend for people in trying to understand what those symbols and images mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Take my class.
But you're
Exactly.
retired.
Jung, Jung made the breakthrough in his life. He was 25 years old. He was a intern, just assigned to the what used to be called the insane asylum, and was listening to real crazies, real, schizophrenics who had been incarcerated because they can't function in the world. And he couldn't make head nor tail of all that they were saying, and neither could the doctors, neither could his teachers. All his teachers taught him was, we listen to them, they're crazy. Then we write down in our, still crazy after all these years, some version. We keep them clean. It's custodial care. That's all he learned as a medical, student in psychiatric care. I make a grand statement, and I'm always willing to be corrected. I make this huge statement after that in my class when I say, that was 1900. This is 2022, almost 2023. I don't think much has changed in the treatment of the severely mentally ill people who are, in psych wards or whatever. I don't think it's changed that much. Yes, we have new drugs, but the drugs make them just, so they don't make trouble for the doctors and the orderlies. That's the whole treatment. In other words, their psychosis is not treated still because they don't know what to do with it. They don't know what to do. All right, now if drugs help the psychotic, all power, that's fine. Jung cured psychotics. He said 1/3 of them he thinks he cured.
Mm.
Even as a 25-year-old with no training, he cured psychosis. How? By listening to them real closely and realizing their word salad, their non sequitur stuff that flows out of their mouth nonstop, isn't the rational language. It's not the language of logic that the doctors speak. And the doctors are all they're doing is trying to get the patient to speak the language of logic. And they don't speak that way. So I do this thing in my class. I say, suppose I gave first of all, I sign that you're not permitted to drop the class. Because if you want to drop, I have to say, I won't sign, you have to stay in the class. And then I'm going to give all my lectures in Japanese. I'm going to insist on speaking, and then I'm giving you the test all in Japanese. And you can say all you want, I don't know Japanese. Well, then you flunk. Not only do you fail the class, but I have the ability to write with my signature that you go away for the rest of your life and never see the light of day again if you don't answer in Japanese. Now, nobody took the time and energy to teach us Japanese. Suppose you recorded everything I said, and then you go take the time and trouble to learn Japanese. Then you listen to the lectures, and then it all makes it. Then you know what I'm saying. Then you don't, get incarcerated because you can't speak that language. That's what I'm saying is happening. That's what Jung says is happening. The psychotics are speaking a different language, the language of myth, the language of symbolism. And the doctors are speaking the language of logos, logic. And all they do is demand that you speak logic, but they've never taught them they don't know how. So I say, who is in a better position compared to whom to learn the other's language? Now, these doctors are getting lots of money for writing down, still crazy after all these years. They're not doing anything, they're not. And I don't mean to condemn, and I could be wrong, maybe this is much more successful these days than I think. But Jung made an impact. And doctors, psychiatrists who deal with the severely mentally ill to this day don't tend to be Jungians. Now, Jungians don't get jobs in psych wards. That's where they're needed the most. Jung listened to a few of these crazies and thought he had a breakthrough when he realized with the vampire girl,
Mm.
she was young, she was 20. She didn't. She believed there are vampires on the moon, and she's so afraid someone's going to bite her and make her into a vampire. This was 1900. This was long before Buffy, before it was popular. So Jung, intuitively following his intuition, he asked her this question: well, why would it be bad to be a vampire? Why don't you want to be a vampire? Whoa, that hit her. Because every other doctor had said to her, there are no vampires. Get over it. They don't live on the moon. Come back to reality, little sweetheart. And he found it's condescending. The way that the doctors will speak to the patients is severely condescending. Honey, come on. There are no vampires. Get up, get over it. Jung didn't talk that way. He said, why would you not want to be a vampire? And that just threw her into such a, discombobulated her. And she regressed after that terribly into catatonic.
Mm.
And then he got real worried that he did something wrong and he's taken a chance and he's not trained. One question changed this woman's life. And after, I don't know if it was a few weeks, she started to come out of it all on her own. And she spoke logic for the first time. She said, now she told her story. Her father, who was wealthy, was ready to marry her off to a business associate who was twice her age. She didn't even know him. She's about to be married. She was scared of the big, scary man. It plugged into, sure enough, an event in her childhood where she was sexually assaulted by a uncle or something. So the vampire, and as soon as she started talking about vampires on the moon, this man didn't want to marry her anymore. See, so she got away. She got out of the, now she's in an insane asylum. And she'd only been there 2 years when Jung realized the vampire is a symbol of the scary man. It's the shadow. She had a vision where after Jung's question, where the vampire appeared in her room. She was wide awake, she says. And he didn't aggress. He just stood there, king of the vampires, stood there at her bed, and he had these magnificent black wings. And he just opened them the slightest bit, and she could see jewels, gems and jewels, lining his wings. And she said it was the most beautiful thing she ever saw. That when he asked that question, the first thing that happened was she was so excited, full of affect. Dr. Jung, the king vampire came to me. He didn't hurt me at all. He was beautiful, the most beautiful thing I ever saw. And Jung thought, aha, we're seeing movement here.
Mm.
And then she regressed. And then when she came out of it, she said, here's my story. I was forced to marry this man I didn't want to. She was released from the insane asylum where he thinks she could have been there for a lifetime if he hadn't intervened with one question. When he saw all these crazies. Their language is symbolic. The language is myth. The individual words are symbols. So if you can learn, so when I teach my class, I say, one thing you're going to learn here in this semester is you're going to learn a new language. Conjugate verbs, but it won't be that hard because it's a language you already know. It's the same language, mythic language, that is, he says, the native language of the unconscious. It's the same language that speaks in dreams, the same language that speaks in myth, in tarot, in occult, in fairy tales, I have a whole list of, mysticism, etc., science fiction, pathologies, advertising. Advertising gives you an image. Now you're supposed to connect the image. That Prudential Mountain, safe and stable, it's an insurance product. See, so we're speaking the language of symbolism all the time. Art is expressing itself through this language of symbolism. Learn the symbols. Now he starts to lay it all out for us. Colors are symbolic. Red, we take it from nature. We don't say, well, Dr. Jung said red means this. No, he's getting it from nature. What's red in nature? blood, your blood.
Mm.
So red is going to stand for, bleeding, difficulty. It's going to be a difficult path. The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy's in ruby slippers. Her, the foot, the shoes are symbols of your journey in life. Lots of people will dream and have imagery of their shoes. She's in red shoe, and it's all, the ruby slippers, the yellow brick road, the Emerald City. It's all the language of alchemy, which is pure symbolism. So her journey, her feet, is going to be a difficult journey because they're red. She's going to have to go through suffering, through bleeding, but the suffering and the bleeding will lead to new life. And we see it in the religion. Christians drink the blood of Christ, to get new life, to get life. Here's life right here. Look how they grew. They were kittens only months ago. And Jews will refuse to ingest the blood. Everything has to be well done for the same reason, because the life is in the blood.
Mm.
See, so it comes out differently in different cultures, but the archetype is the same. Blood gives life.
Yeah, and that goes back to the vampire, because maybe the young woman felt like being married off to someone that she didn't want to be married to was sucking the life out of her, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the students learn about me, and they learn I dress alchemically. I'll
mm,
start in green. I thought, what should I wear? I've got my green for the new cycle and the flowers. It's
mm,
all going to be every little last thing in
yeah,
myth
yeah. I
symbolic.
remember. I remember your corn outfit.
Ah, corn
Yeah,
goddess.
yeah, yeah,
Demeter, corn
yeah.
goddess. Yeah. See, you
So,
remember my outfits. How
oh
many
yeah,
college have you had that you can say, I remember what she or he wore?
yeah. Not many. I remember a couple of them. I also remember how you dressed for Artemis. I think you had like a jacket, like a
Yeah, it was
insulated. Yeah,
air.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
my, you know,
Yep.
she's a classic Artemis. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got a question here from Stephanie, and
Okay.
I think she's asking about basic a symbol, not in regards necessarily to a specific dream, but just spiders and webs in dreams.
Okay. That's great. That's great. Okay. So behind a lot of these animal figures are deities. So the spider, there's the Native American spider goddess and spider woman. I just happened to catch last night a little snippet of Charlotte's Web,
Mm, yeah.
where Charlotte is the spider that's going to save the pig. And I talk to myself, and I always agree with myself. It's so convenient. So I'm saying to myself, yeah, those are the gods. Okay, we've got a pig goddess. She's the goddess of fertility, right? And little pigs and the piglets.
Mm,
And we have a spider goddess. The spider is brilliant, very, very smart animal. The predators tend to be smarter than the prey. And the web, of course, is this amazing structure of complexity. They're always, I don't know about always, typically mandala shaped, symbolic of wholeness. The spider is the dark goddess because she's trying to catch the prey in her web and eat them.
mm,
So it opens up to what we call the triple goddess tradition, the pig goddess. So we don't have, there must be another figure in the story that's the virgin type.
mm,
Now, I know it's a male pig, Wilbur the pig,
mm,
but it's all about saving him. So it's all about life and death. And then you look at other contexts. So Athena was, this spider was sacred to Athena, and she had spinning contests. That's how Arachne got her name, because she spun this most magnificent cloak in honor of the goddess Athena. But what she put in the imagery was the love affairs of all the gods. And Athena is a virgin goddess, and she is disgusted and horrified and embarrassed by all these love affairs, and she, ripped it up and turned Arachne into a spider right then. So Arachne, the spider, lives in the Parthenon, just crawling around in the rafters. So the spider is a profound symbol. Now you'd have to ask, where did this come up in a dream or in life? Are you afraid? Being afraid of spiders is a different thing.
mm,
But the spider as a symbol is the symbol of the dark goddess who devours life but turns around and gives new birth. And she's a symbol of extreme complexity.
Hmm.
How's that?
Yeah. And isn't
Fear of
there,
is a different thing.
yeah, and isn't there also kind of the spinning of fate as well
Yes,
in some
fates
of
are
the
spinners.
traditions? Yeah.
Spinners of all types. Again, the triple goddess, because they're three spinners.
Hmm.
One is Clotho, gets the fluff out. I don't remember the name of Adepo, weaves it all together. And Atropos, atrophy,
Yeah.
cuts
Yeah.
it. So here's our triple goddess. Your virgin, you're getting your skeins together. Now your great mother that's going to produce life, weaving it all in your life. And then the dark goddess, the killer goddess, cuts it all off.
Hmm.
But it's a gift. She gives her dark gift of death and disease, because where would we all be without death and disease, right? You said so. Oh, weavers, yes. This is just so fantastic. Oh my God, I get so excited when I went all into my goddess stuff in my goddess class. We dealt with this question. Think is it Anne? Was it Esther Harding made a Jungian scholar made this point about women's work. So first I showed images of how the female is depicted, and then we talked about women's work, which is a stereotype. Notice this word stereotype. It's stereo. It's the same song on both sides, but there's always an archetype beneath it. The archetype would have the opposite story on the other side. So the archetype underneath is what's of the essence. Women's work, politically, we women don't want to be, reduced to just the cleaning and the cooking, right? We want careers. We want to go out in the world and become college professor and stuff like that. Well, who does the women's? Then the house husband does the women's work. Okay, but when you just look at women's work itself, cooking, cleaning, birth giving, dealing with the kids, okay, all of it, it is transformational. In other words, the woman transforms with her body and with her work the raw elements of nature. You can't just take the raw elements of nature and have a dinner. Like the man goes hunting, gets the deer, and slams the deer down on the table and says, "Let's eat." Okay, do we all sit down and start, carving up? No, he gives it to the woman. She's got to do all the work. The turkey, she transforms it into something usable, food we can eat. Sewing, cloth we can, you take the cotton, but you can't just have a bunch of cotton and have your shirt. No, it's got to be all worked on.
Hmm.
The woman does the work that transforms raw energy into something usable. We do it with the man's sperm. Excuse me for getting personal. um, that's the raw energy of life. Oh my God, you're giving us 200 million of them? Oh my God, all at once. Is that right? Oh my God, what do we do with 200 million possible little babies? We got one. We got one little seed. Well, we are going to take what is called the living waters, the stream of river Styx that Psyche has to go and get a little flask of it. Our womb is like the little pear-shaped flask. We women have to take the raw energy of nature that's coming at us, and we've got to, calm it and tame it and just just take a little bit, and do our magic with it. And here's the baby. Here's each one of us. So the woman does this profound work. So you shouldn't think cooking and cleaning and so on and sewing is, demeaning. It is profound work of transforming raw energy. Then when I thought about sewing and weaving, oh God, I had this really fabulous, mm, revelation, because the triple goddess. Okay, you got Virgin Mother Crone, or the mother. Sometimes the seductress shows up, and it's the fourth, or a warrior goddess. So all three of them turn out to be weavers. It's as if weaving is in our nature as women. And then you have these images from mythology and story. You have Madame Defarge in Tale of Two Cities, who's knitting all the time, and she's knitting in the names of all the enemies of the revolution to be killed. So it's amazing. So we've got sort of vernacular names for the triple goddess. Okay, what's our thing in life? Okay, let's do an old word, not used anymore, for a woman who never marries. What's she called
Yes.
traditionally?
Yeah. Spinster. That's,
Spinster.
yeah.
She's spinning. And now, what is the woman who got married called? Wife.
Yeah.
Wife comes from the same root as weave,
Mm.
weave, wife, web, wed, wedding. It all comes from weaving. Warp and woof. Wife is the weaver. Oh, so great. And then what is our word for an old goddess? How did this work?
The crone.
Yeah, the crone. Wait a minute. There's a weaving term too. There's the spinster, the wife, and the widow.
Oh,
Widow.
yeah.
Widow comes from weave and web. That we talked about the spider web and wed and wedding. Oh, isn't that great? They're all weavers. And
Mm.
when I realized all three of the goddesses are weavers of some type, then I realized this is my big revelation that when the woman is, what's my word? Here come all the sperm at us, our little egg salted. There's another word, bombarded or
Mm.
something. She's calm. She's in her own place. The egg. She's floating on down. No big, And here come all these frenetic, wild little guys swimming now, swimming like crazy. I do this bit. I say, you have a sperm self. You have an egg self. You were made from a sperm and an egg. That's your anima animus. See.
Mm.
So I'm looking at the difference between the masculine and the feminine. I mean, built into nature. The feminine is calm. She never leaves her own place. It's all going to take place in her body. But the man, he enters into the realm of the alien, right? And he leaves his mark. And here they all come. Well, she's calm. She's much bigger. And it isn't the case that the fastest swimmer, gets to her and gets through the cell wall and impregnates. It's not the fastest swimmer. He might be this guy, 5 deep, She waits for him to push his little
Mm.
head through. She decides and waits, and she's got to weaken the cell wall. She puts out a
Mm.
chemical that weakens just enough for him to get in. Then she puts out another chemical that expels them all. Well, okay, now we got a zygote. Now it's a impregnated little egg, just like this one was too. Yeah, me? So now here's my point why I went into all this, but it's fun. Um, what does she do? What does the egg do with the sperm now? She sews it. She dismembers him. Like
Mm.
if you succeed, you're going to get dismembered. And it's the chromosomes that are little threads. And she's going to weave and sew her threads in with his threads and make a new person.
Mm.
So, of the essence is weaving for us. What isn't that amazing? I'm just
Yeah.
thrilled. It's so exciting and amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Stephanie wrote that she used to be terrified of spiders, but
Ah,
after a particular dream of a spider goddess, it changed.
aha!
She says, "I'm still wary of spiders, but less so. My dreams now, I know to pay attention when I see her."
Great,
Yeah.
great. Now, let me make a very quick comment because before I said, quick for Sharon, that fear of spiders is something else.
Mm.
So let me do a quick thing. And again, in my class, when I do myth and symbol, which I think, Nick, is the class you took way
Yeah, that
back
was the
in.
very first one. Was myth and symbol. Yeah.
So that you had a big revelation. I'll always remember what Nick said to me that before he had been studying existentialism and it was so heavy, and he told me he dreams in black and white all the time. And after he heard these lectures of, the of symbolism and everything kind of awakened for him. There was a camel, came into his world, and then he started dreaming in color. Oh, I was so thrilled. So I'll do this thing in my myth and symbol class where I'm talking about collective memories, racial memories, Jung calls it. What race, it depends. The human race, but even beyond that, the race of all mammals.
Mm.
There's a mammal. We all are patterned with terrors and fears of what was actually dangerous to our ancestors at some point in our evolution. That's our point. So we are evolved from apes who, that's why we have the nifty opposable thumb, because it's arboreal. We were arboreal creatures to hang on to the branches. Okay, we lost the trees, then we began to evolve otherwise. But we still bear the memory traces collectively, unconsciously, of things that are, or creatures that are very dangerous to our survival. Now, we're afraid of the lion, sure,
Mm.
sure. I've seen images of a lion, walking through, and hear all the chimps in the trees. Oh, they go insane. They start yelling and screaming, which is our mechanism for if we're in danger. Our immediate thing is cry and scream. Not all creatures do that. That's our defense mechanism. They start jumping and acting out, and here's the camera on the lion. Ooh, ears back. Ooh, let me out of here. Creep out of here. All right, so we have defense. We don't have a defense against the snake that crawls up into the trees. You see, you can yell at the snake all you want. He's going to grab you. He's either bite you or grab you and eat you. So we all, as humans, and not only humans, probably all mammals, I just have one here to demonstrate, probably have a deep-seated terror of snakes, of reptiles in general. What if we, in myth, make the reptile just as big, big, big as you can possibly make him? You got T-Rex. We're all terrified of T-Rex and fascinated at the same time. It's awful and awesome. And then I'll draw a dinosaur on the board. I'm a terrible drawer. I'll say, what about the biggest, biggest, biggest dinosaur? Isn't he terrifying? And I'll draw Brontosaurus, No, that's Barney. We're not scared of that. That's not your biggest monster. Your big monster is is which one? Um, the Japanese one.
Oh, Godzilla.
Godzilla. He looks like T-Rex. You
Mm.
don't make a great big Barney that terrifies everyone. Why? Why? Because the Brontosaurus is a vegisaur.
Mm.
It's a plant eater, and T-Rex is a metasaurus. So we are patterned with the terror of whoever was dangerous to us. Now, as apes in the trees, the memory of the dinosaur goes even further back. All mammals would probably be patterned with it. Terror of the great big reptile. Uh, but spiders. So here we are, apes in the trees. What is dangerous to our survival? Sure, bugs of all kinds. I got to do it, as I said. They crawl into your fur, and that's what the chimps are doing when they groom each other, getting bugs out of there. All we know is a bug crawls in there, bites you, you get sick and die. We don't make any distinction with any type of bug. We're scared of all bugs. Cockroach, let's say there's a little spider in your home and it's way up there in the corner. I say, who is more dangerous to whom in this scenario?
Mm.
That little spider web that can't hurt me. I can sure hurt him. I'd take him, put him out. But we are patterned with a memory that all bugs are dangerous. And they were once. Okay? So this is a different memory. So in my class, I'll do a show and tell. I'm going to take a box. It's going to bump here and there. Don't pay any attention to that box. Just continue to pay attention to the lecture. And when I'm ready, I'm going to open that box and push it toward you. I'm going to let them all out. Snakes and worms, snakes of every kind. Let them slither all over your body. Let them slither up into your pant leg, whatever. Now, and then I ask, would that be disturbing to anyone? And I'll get people go, oh, even mentioning it. And I'll get others who say, no, I love snakes. It's either the awesome or the awful.
Mm.
And then I'll do another. I'll say, well, what if I had a great big box full of bugs of all types? Flying cockroach is going to land on your forehead. Bugs are going to crawl on your body. I say, pay no attention. They can't hurt you. Would that bother anyone? And then I have pictures to send around. Oh my God, I can't stand it. We can't stand a bug crawling on us. It's a cultural memory trace or a racial memory trace of all humans, probably all primates.
Mm.
So that's different. If she says, I used to be afraid of spiders, we all are. Don't worry about it. And I've had people tell me dreams where this bed is full of snakes. Oh my God, it's hideous. Sure, we're all patterned with the terror of what's really dangerous to us, right?
Mm.
Don't even set those dreams aside. Those are ancient memory dreams. But then she said the spider goddess appeared to her as a specific spider. And then we have positive images of bugs. I got Jiminy Cricket, who's a little cricket guy, right? I've got beetles, who's, the true God, different kind of beetles. But anyway, Spider is a magnificent goddess.
Mm.
Okay, that was my short version.
Yeah. I remember that box on the table.
Remember that.
Yeah, I do. Well, and
And
it's
then
interesting.
I'll puppies. Puppies.
Oh,
Are puppies gonna bother? No, they're cute.
yeah.
I'll bring little chip. I don't bring them in. I'm just talking.
Mm,
Little chipmunks. Chipmunks. Oh, I'll bring rats.
mm,
Rats. Oh, nobody wants rats. Chipmunks in our part of the world, in Denver, in Colorado. Chipmunks carry bubonic plague, the
mm,
same disease that killed a third of Europe. But we're not patterned with terror of the chipmunk, are
mm.
we? It's Alvin. It's the cute
Yeah,
chipmunks.
yeah,
Because we as a species did not experience the chipmunk biting, and then a third of us die off, you see? But we did experience it with rats. And the rat is a sacred animal in India, a
mm,
sacred animal in China, because they didn't experience the Black Plague that came from the rat. It wasn't the rat's fault, it was the microorganism on the flea on the rat. The rats all died too.
yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you can work with the animals. I think you can overcome the fears. Like Stephanie overcame the fear of the spider to some extent, and I used to loathe snakes, and I have over the past decade altered my relationship with snake, and I still respect snake and want to give snake plenty of room. But I don't fear snake as much as I used to.
See? So
Yeah,
we can consciously, alter. But you have a fear of snakes because we all do, because we're all
yeah,
humans.
yeah.
It's inherited. This is our proof of racial memory.
Right, right. Well, wonderful. Well, no one else has entered in any other dreams.
Because I went
Um,
off into symbolism, but
that's okay. I have one last one I can
okay.
share. And this is also by a male. Um, so I dreamed of coming across a teenaged girl showing something to a group of smaller children. It was a small bird's nest tucked into the rocks next to the sidewalk. The mother
Hmm.
bird was there, screaming her head off, trying to scare the people away. Just leave the birds alone, I told the girl. She snarled at me and kicked at one of the baby birds, which had stepped out of the nest to make little peeping noises at her. I was shocked. How could anyone be so cruel? I had no idea how to respond. Anything I did would likely lead to more pain for the birds.
Wow.
Mm,
I said wow about every dream, didn't I? When we're talking about symbolism and how to decipher the symbols and so on, of course, the big ones are the ego, persona, mask,
mm,
um, animus, shadow, and the great self. So if you dream of a opposite gender person in your dream, that's the anima or animus, is symbolic of the other gender side of yourself. Jung, way back in the 1920s, talked about gender as a continuum, not an absolute. So the dreamer is a male, right?
yeah.
Sees a teenage girl.
Mm-hmm.
So that's his anima that he sees in the dream and meets in the dream. She's teenager. She's still evolving. She's not mature yet.
Mm,
I don't know if it plugs into teenage, hooliganism. But the whole dream starts to focus on this bird's nest, which is way out of place on the
mm,
ground next to the sidewalk. So his younger self, his teenage self, is cavalier. The dream is telling him, I think, to mature,
mm,
take responsibility and stop being a hooligan.
mm,
Because we see a little bird's nest, which is a life energy. It's a mama bird. It's so delicate. It's so fragile.
mm,
Is dealing with something in his life, fragile feelings, or he feels vulnerable,
mm,
terribly vulnerable, something like that. And the little bird's nest is so exposed, and the mama bird is going crazy as anybody would. Help me, oh, protect my babies. I'm way out of place. It's like the nest fell or something.
Mm,
And she can't get it back up there with the babies in there. And people are walking by and they're irresponsible. He's got some very, pressing, vulnerable set of feelings, which are being treated in a cavalier manner
mm,
by teenagers, by consciousness that is still evolving. I don't want to say unevolved because a teenager is evolving toward maturity. And then she starts kicking, and one little bird comes out and peeps a baby, and she kicks it. This is terrible. And he says, "How can you act that way? How can you be that way?" So maybe he feels under assault. I don't know if, again, intuitively, something's telling me that this is a gender issue. Does
mm,
he feel like he'd rather, he isn't, fully in the masculine camp, and his feelings are so vulnerable, and the society is going to come along and kick him
mm,
right in his most vulnerable place, and he can't understand, how do people act that way? How do people treat other people with such cruelty? He feels as delicate and as fragile as a tiny baby bird who's out of place.
mm. And isn't there some, just to maybe add on with birds and a connection to spirit?
Sure,
Yeah,
yes. The spirit that can soar has fallen to the ground.
yeah,
Can't soar, it's so vulnerable.
yeah,
Right,
yeah,
very good.
yeah,
See, so symbols are always multivalent, we say. Many, many meanings. It doesn't mean one thing.
yeah. When I think you always have to look at the context of the dream to try to figure it out, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Sometimes you can take a single image out of a dream, though, and have a profound meaning.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I was hoping I would have some dreams last night, but I did not.
Well,
So,
anybody else have a dream to
yeah,
throw me?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This will be the last call for
Okay.
anyone who has dreams that they would like to have interpreted. Um,
Okay.
let's see. It says yes. Tony says that he will type one in for us.
Okay.
While Tony's typing, um, I wanted to mention something that you said a while back about how um, Jung is perceived. I remember many years ago when I was in the faculty room, there was another adjunct. She was a psychology adjunct, and I happened just to briefly mention Jung's name, and she immediately shot out. She's, "Oh, he's just crazy. He's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
crazy. I had nothing to do with him." And I didn't say anything. I just like, okay, all right.
Okay. And also, yeah.
Yeah.
Jung is brilliant. And we are seeing more and more psychologists, psychiatrists who have worked for 30 years, a whole career, and they get so frustrated they don't know what to do with the patient.
Mm,
And then they come to the Jungians like desperate, show us something. How does this work?
yeah.
All they do is dispense drugs these days.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I don't to diminish. I know they do a lot more than that. I don't,
Yeah. Yeah.
all the angry
Yeah. Well, sometimes the drugs can be helpful, but it seems like there has to be something more. And you know,
right.
I think that it's something that you talked about in class once, and I forget which class. And I think Campbell kind of addressed this as well. But it's like what we tend to do with people is instead of walking them through
Yes.
the sort of this initiatory experience of the psyche, we
Yeah.
with the drugs we just stop them and pull them out, right? Yeah,
So they never evolve. They just need the drug.
yeah,
So Jung said that depression is the disease of our era.
right.
There's so many with depression, anxiety, all the time, every time you turn around. Well, what is the preferred treatment? Some kind of drug, Prozac, whatever it is. There's a chemical imbalance in the depressed person. Okay, all right, okay. Maybe there is. But how can a whole society keep producing millions and millions, some large percentage with chemical imbalance?
Mm,
We wouldn't survive, if we have these terrible chemical imbalances. Jung, and there might be cases where it is a chemical imbalance, and then that person could be treated with drugs, sure.
Mm.
But the vast majority of cases, if depression is the disease of our era, Jung says it's a spiritual disease,
Mm.
and treatment is spiritual. Back to your fellow colleagues say, "Oh, yeah, right, isn't that ridiculous?"
Yeah.
And by spiritual, we don't mean turn your life over to Jesus Christ. We don't mean that. We mean depression, he thought, is the result of feeling
Mm.
meaninglessness, purposelessness, directionless, right? So that the answer or the antidote is to infuse your life with meaning and
Mm.
value and purpose. How do you do that? With Prozac? No. Jung thought what you need is a numinous experience.
Mm.
Even if it wasn't a dream, you need something profound and extraordinary to shake you up and, out of your depression. You see one extraordinary, amazing thing that puts you in absolute awe, and you're not depressed right then. Fill your life with awe. Find what amazes you. Do a ritual to bring in the meaning. Create meaning in your life, which is back to the existentialist that said,
Mm.
you only have meaning in your life if you have created it.
All
But
right.
we're not conditioned to do that. We're conditioned to just go to church and do what they say, go to work and do what they say. And so we have a severe lack because the religions used to provide this for people, back to my earlier point. And now they don't. Now it's just adherence to certain principles.
Right.
But if you could get the numinous experience, and we point to it's the guy who began AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, was a patient of Jung's.
Right.
He presented in the 1920s in Switzerland with severe drinking, compulsive drinking. He just couldn't stop himself. He tried and tried and tried everything. And Jung tried and tried and tried with him, couldn't get him to stop. And Jung thought what you need is a profound experience of the numinous, of the divine, something extraordinary.
Mm.
And you can't just give that. The doctor
Mm.
can't just poof, give that. Here, I have an instrument.
Yeah.
Poof, give you a meaningful, mystical experience. But years later, decades later, that man wrote a famous letter to Dr. Jung saying, "You were right. I then eventually had some profound, life-changing experience of awe, and it changed his life. He never drank again."
Yeah.
And that got worked into turn it over to a higher power in the 12 steps. But that's not what Jung meant. He meant have a mystical experience.
Mm.
That's the cure to depression.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talking way too much.
Yeah. Well, Tony has the dream.
Hey,
Let me see here. And my text is small, so I'm squinting and kind of looking. His old eyes. Nope, that doesn't help. All right. So there was a plane convoy, passenger planes. They all crashed in a sort of jungle type of place in a line, though it wasn't a dense jungle. There was something wrong ahead in the line, and each plane had to be cut off one by one as zombies spread. One plane would be affected, so they would go forward to the next plane and block it off. There was this lady who was my mother, but not my actual mother, and she was in charge of an archaeological dig. The dig was down to a hole that was where some kind of evil lived. The planes crashed there all along each other out of that hole slash that dig. Her son went with her, not me. They went into the plains to where um, the hole was to find out what was down there, what happened. The people on the plane were like a flashback I was having. They tried to stay alive, but kept having to run forward to the next plane where they would live and be safe for a while. I even saw the planes before they crashed and after. Friends were making fun of me for sleeping, but I was only half asleep, so I could hold on to a dream. And that's the end.
well, the most remarkable thing in this dream is planes crashing.
Mm.
There's a whole line of planes,
Yeah, that's what
and
it
they
sounds
all
like. Yeah.
a convoy of planes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they crash in a jungle-like area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they all crashed in a line, but it wasn't a dense jungle.
Okay.
Yeah,
Kind of a clearing or open place, but the planes all crashed. And
yeah,
they're kind of in line.
right.
And we'll talk about the suffering and people got killed and burned up, but zombies show up later.
Mm.
And then it's all about people moving from a crashed plane to the one in front and working their way up to the head plane. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that seems to be right. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah,
those zombies appear.
yeah.
Uh,
So
I
yeah.
don't know. Again, I don't know if this is right at all. Now, I know Tony. I know how Tony thinks. Let me tell you all his personal details at this time. No, kidding. Don't worry, Tony. But I'm again intuitively feeling a political thing going on here.
Mm,
That it looks to us, sane people, as we look at our world, like everything's going to hell in a handbasket here. With back to the crazy Trumpers and the conspiracy theories, everything. The plane, of course, is collective. This is a collective dream because it's carrying lots of people. It's carrying a whole society, but they're all crashing. Your planes are crashing. Almost like my point about, I think, especially with that election, we're right on the pivot of the fulcrum, turning away from this crazy time.
mm,
And it'll take a while, but we'll be back into normal. That's I've been predicting. I could be wrong. It's almost like this crazy time and this, all the crazies, they're crashing and they're crashing our world. They're trying to go on a journey in a plane. That's a vehicle carrying massive numbers. So society is trying to move forward and evolve. And of course, a plane is in the sky, so we're trying to evolve to higher consciousness, but we keep crashing. A whole line of them crashes. And then they keep trying to, okay, Trump didn't win, etc. Okay, we try to move up, let's get a different guy, etc. And then when do these zombies start appearing? Because and then the mother is, of course, the anima figure,
mm,
and we're going to excavate it as if it were a archaeological dig. We
mm,
go down into the hole and find evil there, evil. That's going into the unconscious in this place where all these planes have crashed, and we find a dark, negative shadow, diseased shadow, and zombies start showing up, meaning the undead. They're like dead but not quite, or revived, or whatever it is, and
mm,
they're gonna devour all of us, almost as if the Trump phenomenon is crashing now.
mm,
And it's producing a race of zombies who are out to devour the rest of society. And they're not rational, they're sick, they're twisted. And now they're just dead zombies, and they want to feed on human flesh. And all of us are endangered by them. And again, we don't necessarily mean only Trump, but all these authoritarian figures. Look, if we applied this to Putin, all his planes are crashing. Look
mm,
what he's trying to do in Ukraine, and it's not working. It's all crashing, and he's producing zombies of his people, that are loose and dangerous now. Um, and then it turns into an archaeological dig because historians will want to study this Trump era. I can see PhDs in the future, and their specialty area is what in the hell happened in,
mm.
in 2015, 16, and what were the implications. You could get a whole PhD dissertation out of it easily. And many books, well, there have already been many books that scholars will want to study this whole phenomenon. Why did the early 21st century move toward authoritarianism in this pronounced way? And it produced a race of zombies that are eating up democracy. Something like that.
Mm.
I know Tony enough
Yeah.
to know he's going to dig that interpretation, but it might be way off. I don't know.
Yeah, he made one other comment that said that it was like they were being drawn there, the planes. So it was like the planes were being, I guess, drawn to that jungle. Yeah,
Crash, yeah.
yeah,
Like being sucked in by the
right.
authoritarian thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could be way off on my political description there. Tony, did that sound anything strike a chord there? That it's kind of like the planes crashing politically? Does he respond?
Those, we'll give him a second. There's a little bit of a
Okay.
lag.
Okay.
I've had dreams of being on crashing planes, and those are the worst dreams. Yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah. Because you have no control. If you're the passenger and
yeah,
something goes wrong, you have no control. It's
yeah.
dreaming that your life is out of control.
Mm.
You're in somebody else's hands.
Yeah, Tony says, thank you. I like it.
Okay.
So,
Okay. We'll
all
do that.
right. Well, I think that's it for the dreams. I
Oh,
think that's what we've got. So Sharon, thank you so much for doing this. It was a lot of fun.
oh,
Um,
just
uh, yeah,
punch the button. She's gonna talk.
yeah. Well, hopefully we can do this again. And as I keep building a larger and larger audience, um, I'll have you back. Always a pleasure to speak with you.
Your dream
And
can be a regular thing.
yeah, yeah. And so this will be shared. It'll be live. I'll send you the link so
Okay.
you can access it.
Thank you.
But I think we're good.
Excellent.
So thank you again. Thank you for everyone who joined us today. I really appreciate it. The next episode of Rebel Spirit Radio will be out this coming Friday. Um, and Stephanie made a comment here. I can also see it as a culture of consumerism killing the
Yes.
planet. Yeah,
Well, sure.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
One way or
Especially
another.
with the zombies. Yeah,
Producing zombies that just eat up everything. Right.
yeah,
Very good.
yeah,
Gold stars all
yeah,
around. Thank you so
yeah,
much, Nick. I
yeah.
so appreciate
And just so you know, Stephanie's thesis advisor was Carl.
it. Rest, pal.
So we have a shared knowledge of
Yeah.
something. So yeah.
Work
So
well with him, Stephanie. Everything cool with Carl Rashke.
Oh,
Anyway.
well. Tony said he was limited to 200 words in his comments,
Oh,
so I think Stephanie would have to have more than 200 words to account for Carl.
I love Carl.
Yeah,
I was a student of Carl Rashke's too back in the
yeah,
70s.
yeah. So, all right.
So
Well, thank you, everyone.
good.
Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and
Happy solstice. Happy holidays.
yeah,
Pray,
yeah, yeah,
keep
yeah. Being
dreaming. Dream on, dream on.
yeah, yeah, and continue to nurture those rebel spirits.
Yes, rebel spirit.
Right.
Sacred disobedience.
Yeah, there you go.
Rebel. Thank you so much, Nick.
Okay, thank
And
you.
Tim, thank you. Thank you.
All right, so I just ended.